Hello, welcome to episode 2 of the b0des video log, vlog. I'm going to keep pretty much the same format for this episode. I thought about pulling out a different book than the red book and doing kind of a similar thing where I just pick a random section and talk about it. But basically I realized that if it's this off the cuff and this kind of completely natural, whatever pops in my mind type thing, the red book works really well because it's so kind of abstract, and vague, and so it plays well into a off the cuff reading. But if I pick something else that's more specific or more kind of left brain, I'm likely to kind of stumble unless I really start kind of researching it in real time with y'all, or at the very least I might reveal more of my ignorance on the subject, which would not make for very good material, right? Because who wants to hear someone they don't know what they're talking about, talk about something, right? And so it would take more research, which would mean I would not be able to just do these off the cuff whenever I felt like, and the goal is to do something repeatable that I can do every day and just keep practicing this and building on it. And I can't help but think this is going to help me get inspired too, because, just on a personal level, I'm working on new music, new material, and this type of thinking always helps me think about what I want to create anyways. We're at a very weird time right now. Life is crazy right now for everybody. It's June 2020, June 12th. We're just coming off of coronavirus, and then we've had a lot of peaceful protests and then not so peaceful protests that kind of got sparked by George Floyd. And, the whole world is just kind of crazy right now. And that's the context to which I'm trying to do my work, And by my work, I mean make more music. But music is not all I do. If you know anything about me, I have a few different talents, But music is probably my favorite thing, if I had to pick one. That and blunts, right? That and blunts. Blunts with candle lighters. So yeah, it worked out all right yesterday. Let's just try that again. Pick a random section of the red book and just see what happens. Plus, I want you to see how this red book is very intimidating, very hard to read, hard to make sense of, but that's the beauty of it, is it can kind of be like a Rorschach painting to just kind of play with your mind and see what concepts pop out, I also wanted to mention yesterday, I didn't mention who I was thinking of when I said Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Tiger Woods, and Killer Instinct. But really I was thinking about Timothy S. Grover. That is Michael Jordan and Kobe's trainer. Shout out Tim Grover. I didn't mention his name yesterday, but y'all should know his name. Y'all should look up his book, Relentless. He has a really good chapter on there on using your dark side, right? And I really recommend that because I feel like it goes in well with Carl Jung's like shadow work ideas. The gist of it in the context of his book is those guys were their full selves, they left nothing on the field. And, he gets into Tiger Woods specifically and how he had a fall from grace because he couldn't square his squeaky clean image in the public's eye with the obvious digressions he was making in his romantic life. And so he had a very long period of, frustration in his career. And Tim Grover says something along the lines of he wishes Tiger had been more just like, hey, so what? So what, I'm going to get out there and beat your ass anyways, even with this media scandal. Kind of like how Kobe did with the rape charges, Which I personally don't believe that there was really anything there, but what do I know? I happen to be a Kobe stan, Kobe believer. I don't think he has ever done anything that heinous, personally. That's just my opinion, though. I leave it to you to research that yourself. I'll probably cut back on the CBD again soon, but I'm just enjoying it lately. It's, I enjoy the act of smoking. It's always been a crutch of mine. But I take long periods off where I'll abstain for years just to make sure that I'm in control. The habit does not control me. So, this off the cuff, off the top of the head format, I'm throwing a lot of disparate ideas together quickly. I'm sorry if it's hard to follow. If it was more structured, I could put this together in a way that'd be easier to follow, but I figure half the attraction is getting the feeling that you're having a conversation with me, If you want more structured material, there's plenty of it out there. So, to me, the Red Book, dare I say it, is sort of like an addition to the Christian canon. Much like how the Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of books that didn't quite make the Bible. It's more like the deep cuts, right? I feel like what Carl Jung has written here is in the same vein. And I love that it's called the Red Book because it kind of feels like some sort of like wizard's book or something that, on the deep cuts, like the stuff that is not given on day one in church. You're finally allowed access to some of the more apocalyptic material, if you will. Basically, Carl Jung has written his own version of the occult. And I don't claim to be some master of studying the occult, but it has been an interest of mine. I've read up quite a bit on Kabbalah, especially. If you listen to my music, you might have caught some of the references. Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism. It contains concepts like the tree of life and Sephirah. I might be saying those words wrong. I'm just some scrubby white dude who's read a lot. But Kabbalah is very interesting to me, and maybe we will do future content on that. You can watch me struggle through my own divination and attempt to get better at it. The main thing that got me interested in Kabbalah was this idea that there is secret knowledge hidden from the public. I'm someone, and perhaps you're at a phase like this too, with how crazy the world has been, where I had this distinct feeling that I was being lied to and that things were being obscured from me. So I went out seeking truth and knowledge, and when I realized that quote unquote occult knowledge used to be privileged knowledge only given to the high level priest class and kept away from the Philistines, I was very interested because I recognize that we live in this blessed modern era where every piece of information is now accessible to us. There are no more secrets. The only secrets are open secrets now. Not to say that things aren't done in the dark or evil does not exist and it's doing things that it's hiding. Certainly that still exists. But in terms of righteous knowledge, good knowledge, it's no longer hidden from the public. It's available to everyone. I believe in the past, in more like medieval times, there was concern about pearls before swine. But nowadays, you can just put your pearls in the open and the swine will not find it because they've already been sucked down some other rabbit hole, of low frequency material that is abundant on the internet. When I say low frequency, I'm referring to low frequency versus high frequency content, another sort of hippy dippy idea popularized by, I believe his name is David Hawkins. He wrote a book, Power versus Force. There's another book on it. The name eludes me, but it refers to this concept of classifying thoughts and even classifying words, because ultimately thoughts are just linguistic things when it comes to logic, right? And classification. We know that thoughts are much more subjectively, but anyways, high frequency content and low frequency content just refers to the idea that some thoughts are higher value than others. By higher value, I just mean more healthy, kind of like eating your fruits and vegetables instead of, Burger King and McDonald's and soda pop. So I'll get into that topic as well at some point. Just ranting here is giving me all sorts of ideas for topics. Yeah. Maybe it's time that I pick a chapter again. And if I had my music queued up, I could maybe even throw in like a little performance. Maybe talk about how one of the concepts applies to something on my album Tide Traith, or any of my music. Some of it is unreleased because my lyrics I know are somewhat hard to understand initially, but I know that people who take the time to understand them, they tend to enjoy them a lot, which is exactly the intention. It's my own take on making my own, kind of attempt at making high frequency content, which is, a very megalomaniac thing to say, but hey, I aim high. I aim for megalomania. Why not, If you're going to do it, go big or go home, Plus, this is what I was best at. So let's see what we get here from the Red Book. Just lit an incense, you know. Figured it worked out pretty well yesterday. Let's repeat the ritual. And today, as I open it, I'm going to display it on the screen better this time since I have a plan for that. Let me go ahead and open and see what we get. So I landed on page 278, liber, secundus. And this time I looked exactly where my finger landed. You know, let my eyes gaze there. In the first section, actually the word I landed on was measurement, I would say. But the section is someone is speaking with the abbreviation I. It's a conversation. It's a dialogue. It looks like it's between possibly someone and a demon. I don't know. The name is b0des that he's speaking to, he or she. And a name like b0des, I don't know. It doesn't sound like a normal name to me. The quote I landed on was this: "O b0des, most powerful one." Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and pull it open at the same time. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to make this much bigger this time for you guys so you can actually see. And then I'm going to go to page 278. By the way, if you're looking for this book on the internet, a simple Google search should find you it. It did for me. Just free, amazing books sitting out there waiting for you to read them. Although you should purchase it if you get value from it. Here's the quote I landed on right here. So I will now read this section. "O b0des, most powerful, spare my life and forgive me for lying like a worm in your path. I'm going to read that again. "O b0des, most powerful, spare my life and forgive me for lying like a worm in your path. I do not want your life. Where do you come from? I come from the west. You come from the west? Do you know of the western lands? Is this the right way to the western lands? I come from a western land whose coast washes against the great western sea. Does the sun sink in that sea, or does it touch the solid land in its decline? The sun sinks far beyond the sea. Beyond the sea, what lies there? There is nothing but empty space there. As you know, the earth is round, and moreover, it turns around the sun. Damned one, where do you get such knowledge? So there is no immortal land where the sun goes down to be reborn. Are you speaking the truth?" His eyes flicker with fury and fear. He steps a thundering pace closer. I tremble. "O b0des, most powerful one, forgive my presumptuousness, but I'm really speaking the truth. I come from a land where this is proven science and where people live who travel around the world with their ships. Our scholars know through measurement how far the sun is from each point of the surface of the earth. It is a celestial body that lies unspeakably far out in unending space. kind of skipping ahead a bit. Insofar as you are mortal, you can never reach the sun. It sounds like b0des is trying to reach immortality by going to the source, the sun. So this is an interesting section to land on. Like I said, I just started arbitrarily with this quote right here. "Oh, b0des, most powerful, spare my life and forgive me for lying like a worm in your path." You know, I mean, somewhat of an obvious passage to me in that this b0des is searching for the Western lands, and I came from the West, you know. Carl Jung was really big on this notion that the Western mind or the Western tradition was, you know, our cultural lineage, our inheritance, and that there was some sort of kind of cultural karma, and maybe if you are on the hero's path, a cultural dharma to engage with here. And, you know, Carl Jung, I don't remember the exact timeline, but he was very opinionated on matters like World War II, or maybe not opinionated being the right word, but he had done a psychological and philosophical analysis on that era and had a lot of interesting things to say about how the archetypes kind of sprang to life during World War II. Things that previously were reserved for legends and myths became manifest in man's actual reality. The unconscious had spilt over into the conscious. And I don't think it's that far off to say that we live in a time where we risk a similar awakening. The little bit that I've read and know is that there is a Odin archetype, or dare I say Wotan archetype, that possessed man at that time and kind of brought man into a more militant, fascist type behavior. You know, unfortunately, some of these archetypes have been adopted by rather ugly right-wing groups, much in the same way that the swastika was reappropriated by the Nazis. Don't ever let your analysis of symbols be tainted by people who have misused those symbols. Take care to separate them from man's misuse and to just look at them on their own merits. I say all that because the Western lands, right? There's this sort of notion of a fundamental distinction in occult research or spiritual research, even, because the occult and the spiritual is really not any different. Ultimately, occult is just a cool buzzword to get kids excited about spirituality, much in the same way where mommy or daddy tell you, no, 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 don't look there. Don't you dare read that. Don't you dare go for that. Which is really what you tell someone that you want to very much be curious about something. There's this fundamental distinction between the East and the West when it comes to spirituality. And my very kind of low level apprentice understanding of it is that it would appear to me that the East tends to be more about stillness, observation, consciousness, sort of just a way of being, silent being, meditative being, present being. And I would say this is sort of the fundamental teaching of the East, if I even have any right to say that, being a white dude from the West, is more or less around getting your awareness in the proper headspace. But there's no particular need or stress on the idea of action, typically in my studies of the East. Although definitely Zen could get into that more so. So it depends on what flavor of the Eastern traditions you're reading. In the West, we are much more Christian-based culture, and with it we get all of that flavor to our teachings, and we get that baggage as well. And it's my opinion that the Western Christian tradition, which then has its roots into Judaism, which then has its roots into, I don't claim to know, but I hear things like Sumerian and just ancient, is Babylonian the right word, right? Ancient religions. It would appear to me that one of our main ethics is more the opposite, in that it stresses the importance of righteous action, morality, right or wrong, judgment. So, I believe that this is just my personal interpretation, but I believe the East is very good for getting your mind into the proper space so one can attempt the actions of the West. You cannot make a righteous action or a righteous judgment without first learning to cultivate a very neutral, subjective consciousness. And I said subjective because ultimately your consciousness is subjective. Although you can try to be neutral. And so you cultivate a good consciousness, and then a good consciousness. What a crude way to say it. A present consciousness, and then you, in my opinion, if you want to integrate the two philosophies, you walk your dharma, you walk your purpose. And the West is all about action and purpose. And personally, I think this is why right now, when you look at the superpowers, the U.S. dominates, is because we became a very almost mission-based, quest-based, obsessed culture with this sort of just continual expansion and conquering, and this just endless mission outward into the unknown, and trying to tame it, to bring order into reality out of chaos. I would say the Western mind is obsessed with, which would make sense because if you're familiar with the concept of logos or the logos, it revolves around respecting this very order. And I would add that the logos, in my understanding, in my interpretation, in my opinion, is a low entropy type of order. because no order is ultimately orderly. It necessarily contains a certain amount of chaos unless you want to move towards madness and fascism or communism or any other ism, without bringing political ideologies into it. But it's important to think of things in terms of kings versus tyrants and dictators. What I would say is the logos would have a low entropy property to it, to where it's a stable order that decays very slowly. That way we may have a peaceful society as we continue our expansion. Something to where women and children, families, they don't have to feel a constant shifting and state of panic and anxiety about every day being radically different than the previous. No, the logos is the stability of the Garden of Eden, a sort of walled garden. That's the ideal of the logos. That is the ideal of the West. So getting back to the Red Book, we see that b0des is on some sort of mission for immortality and is trying to reach the sun with some idea that the sun, it re-sparks things. Unreplenishable. Ultimately, as b0des says here, says, "Begone, miserable weapon, you are not much use. How should you be of against infinity, against the eternal void, and against the unreplenishable? There is no one left for you to conquer. Smash yourself for what it's worth." So, b0des is looking for some sort of eternal spark. Total sidebar, I always felt like the Big Bang is not much explanation for any theory, because what caused the Big Bang, right? The question of infinite regress, it's I don't know any logic yet that stands up to its scrutiny. That's a term for you to Google, infinite regress. Matter of fact, let's just Google it right now. An infinite regress is a series of appropriately related elements with a first member but no last member, where each element leads to or generates the next in some sense. An infinite regress argument is an argument that makes appeal to an infinite regress. Well, that's kind of self-defining, isn't it? But fitting. What's the chart here? So it's just an asking of one question over and over as you drill into the layers of something. Turtles all the way down is a common quote you might have heard. The idea being, what is the universe resting on? Well, it's resting on the back of a turtle. Well, then what is that turtle resting on? The back of another turtle. And that one? And the answer is, hey, it's just turtles all the way down. Also, another side note, I've been reading up on Eric Weinstein's recently released geometric unity theory, his attempt at a theory of everything as a mathematics guy. not a physicist. And I don't understand hardly any of it. I'm not a mathematician on any level like that, but I am interested in theories of everything because it's sort of where math and physics and philosophy collide. And I do believe with generalized artificial intelligence on its way, if we combine something like that with a theory of everything, we may finally build our universe simulator. And if we can build our universe simulator, then the idea of an infinitely resparking sun. Let me just go back to the book here. If we can build our universe simulator, then we will be of use against infinity, against the eternal void, and against the unreplenishable. You see, because a universe simulator would be possibly a generalized artificial intelligence mixed with a theory of everything. So, hey, there you go. I've once again managed to tie together a bunch of the nerdy topics that interest me with a random selection of the Red Book. That's 2 for 2. That's good luck. I'm going to close this episode while I'm ahead. I appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully the content and the presentation is getting better. Hopefully I'm learning to speak more clearly. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but hopefully you got some value out of this. Make sure you research Geometric Unity by Weinstein. Generalized artificial intelligence is a good concept to research. Research Western versus Eastern philosophy. Research Kabbalah. Research the Western tradition. Occult knowledge. Research Carl Jung, research the archetypes, research Odin, Wotan. My understanding of that is those are sort of warlike gods that get reawakened at times and become sort of a collective nightmare for humanity. And if those gods are awakening again, then we need to find a productive way to transmute their energies. We must not have another world war. I know we can all agree on that. That's the fun part about reading the Red Book, is you just get into some very heavy topics very easily, very fast. And I love deep, heavy philosophical topics. It's my passion. Once again, my name is b0des. I'm a musician. I'm a hacker. And I appreciate you checking me out. Like and subscribe. Hit that alarm bell. Follow my Instagram, my Twitter. b0des.com. It's b0des with the 0 every time. We're on every social media, Facebook, all that. I'm open to monetary gifts. Support is crucial right now. I have some business ideas. If you are an angel investor or a VC investor, please chat with me soon. I'm going to plug this at the end of every episode and hope to eventually find some investors. And at some point, I'll probably start talking about my business content as well. I'm very entrepreneurial minded, And I might make more general self-improvement type material in the near future. But for now, it's the Red Book. So I hope you enjoyed that. And thank you for tuning in.